Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday of the 23rd week in Ordinary Time. Hope you're doing well. You know, tomorrow is the birthday of the Blessed Virgin Mary, September the 8th. I don't know if you do anything particularly special in your family on this day, on her birthday, but it would be nice to start a tradition, don't you think? Maybe if you have little children or grandchildren, you could have a cake for Mary, and you could have a little statue on top of the cake and just, recall her birthday today, September the 8th. It's a nice day. Or if anyone's celebrating a special event today, always pray the Hail Mary. Or if someone is born on this day, just tell them, hey, listen, today you share a wonderful birthday with the Blessed Virgin Mary. See, this is everyday evangelization. Everyday evangelization is so wonderful because God gives us an opportunity right away to evangelize at the moment. Everyday evangelization. It's just, God will put something on your heart to say, I want to talk to that person about this, or I want to invite that person to Mass, or I want to talk to this person about their birthday because it falls on September the 8th, or whatever it is. It's beautiful. Don't be embarrassed. Just do it. It's this beautiful everyday evangelization. Seize the moment that God places in your lap to give Him honor and glory, and also to thank our Blessed Mother for saying yes to the Archangel's request that came from God. So God sent the Archangel Gabriel, and Mary said yes. So that's a wonderful gift. So I want to continue my discussion on marriage, matrimony, the holy state of matrimony. I was off for about 3 days. Not that I was away, I was here, but I just want to tell you, thanks for tuning back in again. I was off because we had a lot of situations here. Not that anything was wrong, thanks be to God. We were blessed here by not having any particular damage at all. The only thing really was no power for 20 hours. Other than that, we were fine, thanks be to God. I hope you're doing well as also. If you're not doing well, there are so many agencies and there's so many things that are out there on your phone and on your computer that helps a community survive a devastation like a flood. Or the community is wonderful. This is where there's grassroots charity. Do you know what I mean by grassroots charity? Where people are helping people. Hands are coming together. So what the parish would like to do is to make sure that you all know that. Like, you start Googling. I'm not going to recommend a particular website to you or agency. You go on. If you think they're A-okay, then you go on there, and maybe they're asking for help monetarily, they're asking for help physically, to go and help somebody, or they're asking for things, maybe for toiletries or for paper towels, and they're asking for toothbrushes and those type of things. Maybe they're asking for food, whatever it may be. Maybe they're asking for water. Maybe they're asking for diapers. But you'll be able to go on to the website and see, wow, I didn't realize that this community had a website or a GoFundMe page. But I just ask you to just do that, and if you think it's secure, then do it. I think grassroots charity is always wonderful. Always wonderful. Or if you want to go around to that place and just check it out and say, hey, I just want to check this out to make sure everything is A-okay, and I want to help. That's good too. So I think the parishes of our area, that's what we're doing. We're probably leading you to many grassroots charitable organizations that are doing things, setting up things for people to tap into a community. So every community or borough or city has things to offer for people to assist and help. And I think that's always a good thing. So here at St. Mary's, we promote that. If you want to help anybody in those situations, or if you're in need of help, you might want to tap into those organizations and say, hey, listen, I'm one of those people that need help. Would you be able to help me as well? So they're getting many people calling for both reasons, for help and to help. You see what I mean? Now, let's make it clear that if someone came to the parish, as I said at Mass on Sunday, if someone comes to the parish and speaks to me personally about a situation, I'll do all I can to help. We have a wonderful St. Vincent de Paul Society. We have people that are willing to help. Now, I might not be equipped like maybe a bigger organization is equipped to help, but at least I could tell you what we can do to help, and I could offer you my support in that. Always my love and my prayers. But also, besides my love and my prayers for you, also some kind of help. So I'll see what we could do with the St. Vincent de Paul Society, or people who have asked me, hey, Father, here, hold this, and if someone asked you if they have a need, help them. If not, I want to give this to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. See, there's a lot of things going on there. So I just want to tell you, you might want to search like out there, because I know our staff, we had a staff meeting this morning, and this came up in discussion. And it was a nice, lively conversation that we had among our staff members. And they were just telling me that, there's many organizations that have set up already a GoFundMe page and help for people who are seeking help and want to offer help. And so we should be sending people, not maybe to a particular site, because we're not endorsing any particular site, because that wouldn't be right for us either, because we don't know much about them, right? So I don't want to endorse something that I don't know anything about, because that wouldn't be right for me to do that, right? Because if something was not kosher, I don't want people to be upset and say, Father, you sent us there, but if you look at it, you'll see it's kosher. You'll see it's fine. You'll see. You can tell automatically. I hope. Or check it out. Or check it out yourself. I think it's wonderful. Grassroots charity. That's what Jesus wants us to do. This is the command of the gospel. Jesus tells us to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to visit those who are in need, especially those who are in prison and other situations outside of a devastation like Ida. But I mean, we all get the point. We all get the point that we're supposed to join hands in helping people. And I think the Catholic Church is a wonderful charitable organization. And we have many, many opportunities to help people. So you might want to check them out. Go check out the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, because we cover 5 counties. And maybe they have something posted. Anyway, I want to just offer that to you as an opportunity to say, hey, this is where I could help. And if the Archdiocese gives us a green thumb of taking up a collection on the weekend masses for Ida, we will tell you in advance. We'll tell you when we're taking up the collection and where that money goes to, because that has to be all transparent, as we do with everything that deals with charitable organizations like ourselves and nonprofits, and also money coming into us. It's important that we follow the protocol, right? Especially in this day and age. Well, thank you very much for being a charitable person. Thank you very much for being interested in what I should do as a Christian, as a believer, as a Catholic, to help other people. Yeah, go search that out. There's so many. I mean, we had one staff member had the phone during the meeting and was just going through the possibilities of, well, this one offers, oh, Channel 10 has something up, oh, this has something. So they're all out there. They're all out there. So what we can do as a parish is show you, lead you to that, and say, hey, check this all out. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to be nice. It's nice to be nice, isn't it? It's nice to be nice. Yes. It's the gospel message. Right. So I just want you to know that. Here at St. Mary's in Shrinesville, we do have the St. Vincent de Paul Society, but nowhere as big as some of this stuff is. We're like a little fish. A necessary fish, but a little fish. And when people come to us, we're like, we're with you. What can we do to help you? We have this, we have this, we have this. Let me connect you with the members of the Vincent de Paul Society. Let me help you. Or let me show you where, some of the other bigger items can be found. Because it's all out there. You just have to search. And once you search, you'll be like, oh wow, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know all that. So, all right. So thank you very much for your interest. I know that people have stopped Sandy Olzinski, who is our office manager, and asked her a couple questions. I'm sure people have asked Peggy Hinson, who is not only our head sacristan, but the president of the St. Vincent de Paul Society, some questions. I know that I answered a phone call about this issue. So we are trying our best to really lead and guide people where they could best be served. Best be served. Because they might not be able to we might not be able to help them with much. So just want to give you that information, especially when things are already set up so nicely in many ways. So let's talk about marriage again. And I talk about this because it's very dear to my heart. Because marriage is a divine institution that really promotes family life. And it is the means about which God uses to regenerate life. It's because of a mom and a dad, right? I mean, for this reason, a man leaves his father and mother and joins to his wife, and the two become one. The Lord says to be fertile and multiply. So it's a command of the Lord for married couples to do that. So if you don't want to have children, well, you're not entering into a holy bond of marriage. Like if you're against children, you're against what God has deigned or ordained marriage to be. Marriage is not selfish. It's for the procreation and education of children. I guess you all know that, don't you? And if you don't be embarrassed. Don't it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Because many people, if you ask a young couple, what is one of the primary purposes of marriage? It's for the procreation and education of children. Well, you'll have a lot of people say either I didn't know that or really I don't buy into that. Because they look at marriage as their sweetheart and it's just them. It's not about something beyond them. Do you know what I mean? It's they're just looking at themselves. They take it from I have to say this word, they take it from a selfish aspect, not a life-giving aspect. So marriage is life-giving. That's why it is between a man and a woman, because this way that this creation that God has deigned to happen is the vehicle in which new life comes about in a natural way. So a man and a woman, through their love in their own bodies, joined together, they create, by God's grace, regeneration, new life. Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful. Yes. I mean, I wouldn't be here I don't think you would be here either. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our mom and our dads to express their love for one another in a physical, bodily way. So I know my mom and dad are since going to God, hopefully. I'm sure they are in God's presence, but I don't want to assume anything. That's why we pray for the living and the dead. But I want to just thank my mom and dad for having me. I mean, it's just, I'm here because I'm a product of my mother and father's love. And I'm sure you thank your mom and dad because you're a product of their love. And that's all God's grace working in all of this. But if you're not open to life, and you're like, no, we don't want to have kids. We want to go travel. We want our career. We want to do what we want to do. We don't want kids. Well, why did you get married? Well, we just want to have the benefits of marriage, but not be married. Which leads me into my next point. People are not getting married today. They're just living together. I guess most people wouldn't even consider that a mortal sin. So maybe you do, because I think you're probably a practicing Catholic watching this, right? I'm assuming you're a practicing Catholic because you're listening to a priest talk on a daily basis about the Catholic faith. Or maybe you're not, I don't know, maybe you're like, let me check this priest out. Let me see what he's saying. But it's important for us to know that sexual intimacy is a sacred responsibility that comes with the vocation. So let me just give you an example about my life. I'm a celibate, which means that I do not marry. I don't have the benefits of marriage, which means that I do not have the benefits of marriage, which means that I cannot live with a woman and express a physical love for that woman in my body to her body and hers to mine. So that is an offering I give to the Lord, although it's an offering I give to the Lord and say, I will refrain from that earthly pleasure for a greater good. And I would keep that in imitation to Christ's chastity and his celibacy, because Christ, we believe, was celibate. So the priest who stands in the person of Christ, not only sacramentally, but also in a physical way. We stand in the person of Christ, and he was a male, celibate. So that's why priests are male, because Christ was male. And if you're going to stand in the person of someone, their gender has a lot to do with it. I know that many people might disagree with me or you, but it's a fact that their gender has a lot to do with it. So I stand in his person. I don't stand in her person, I stand in his person. And in doing that, I also, in a beautiful way, imitate and live the celibate lifestyle in which Christ lived as one of his priests. Is it a sacrifice? Well, sure, but I think every vocation has a sacrifice. Many people might say, or many young people might say, oh my gosh, I could never do that. And of course, in the beginning, it might be difficult, but with anything, we rely on God's grace, right? But the seminarians who enter the seminary today are not like crying because they can't. They're joyful men. I mean, oh my gosh, if you know any seminarian, just talk to them. God gives you the grace to live out the vocation, whether it's marriage or priesthood. God gives you the grace to live out the vocation. He's not going to say, I want you to be a celibate priest, but I am not going to give you any grace to live it out. You're going to fight for yourself. Thanks, God. He doesn't do that. Now, I'm not saying that there is no difficulty with living out the married life and there's no difficulty living out the priestly life. That would be ridiculous. There is a cross to every vocation. But God gives married couples graces if they're open to it. I don't know if all married couples are open to God's grace. And for the priest, if the priest is open to God's grace, I hope he is, then God gives him the grace to live the vocation. So all people who are not married are to refrain from sexual intimacy. Now, you're probably, hopefully you're not doing this, but if someone was younger and not a believer, they would probably be laughing right now, right? They would be laughing at me when I say to them that all people who are not married are to refrain from sexual intimacy. It's a sacred bond where two people come together and express their physical love, which is a gift from God to each other for a primary purpose of the procreation and education of children. I'm not saying it's the only purpose, but it is a primary purpose. Remember, there's spiritual goods to marriage. We talked about this. I'm not going to give you a test, but we talked about this, and I think all Catholics need to know what are the spiritual goods in marriage. Procreation and education of children is one of them. Absolutely. In fact, in the rite of marriage, when the priest or the deacon is with the couple during the Mass, and the priest questions the couple, because there's a beautiful statement here. Let me just get it for you, okay? Right before the consent, there's the questions before the consent. Did you know that? So here are the questions before the consent. Here, let me read you the little paragraph. I won't go much longer because I want to do part 2 of this on Thursday. I know Deacon Don is Wednesday. I know that. But I'm back on Thursday again. But it says, "Dearly beloved, you have come together into the house of the church, so that in the presence of the church's minister and the community, your intention to enter into marriage may be strengthened by the Lord with a sacred seal. Christ abundantly blesses the love that binds you. Through a special sacrament, he enriches and strengthens those he has already consecrated by holy baptism." Don't you love that word? He has consecrated you by holy baptism. Just think about that for a little bit. That they may be faithful to each other forever and assume all the responsibilities of married life. Yeah, what are the responsibilities of married life? And so in the presence of the church, I ask you to state your intentions. Mary and Joseph, have you come here to enter into marriage without coercion? Wow. Freely and wholeheartedly. Let me pose that question again. Mary and Joseph, have you come here to enter into marriage without coercion, freely and wholeheartedly? Are you doing this of your own will? Are you being forced, or do you have fear, coercion? Are you doing this without coercion, freely and wholeheartedly? I have. This is of my own free will I'm doing this. After prayerful reflection, I have decided to enter into marriage with this person. Okay. The second question. Are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live? To love somebody for as long as you shall live, and to honor that person. I look at those words, love and honor. How do I love somebody? How do I love somebody with my mind, my heart, my strength, my being? How do I love that person? And how do I not only love them, but how do I honor them? How do I respect them? Physically, emotionally, spiritually. For as long as I shall live. Do you promise that? Yes. Third question. Are you prepared to accept children lovingly from God and to bring them up according to the law of Christ and His church? What church? Well, there's only one church. There's only one church, the Catholic Church, Christ Church. Are you prepared to accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and His church? I am. They're the goods of marriage. Do you see it? They're the goods. So when you think of the goods of marriage, you're thinking of, I'm doing this of my own free will. I'm not being coerced. I'm doing this wholeheartedly. I've made a thoughtful, prayerful, conscious decision. I have no impediments blocking me in my intellect or my will. I'm entering this on my own after prayerful reflection. Are you prepared to follow the path of marriage and to love and respect and honor one another? Do you know that it's just for each other? It's a permanent, life-giving relationship until death. Do you know that? It's very important to understand that marriage is just for these two people. For the two people standing right before God's altar, where you love and respect and honor each other for the rest of your life. So you're doing it of your own free will. You're doing it that you will love and honor each other for the rest of your life. And will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and His church? That means take your children to Mass. Make sure they're educated in the Catholic faith, whether you homeschool, send them to prep, or Catholic school. You have an obligation for the procreation and education of children. So marriage is for the couple themselves, nobody else, life-giving, life-sustaining, all the days of their life, all through the journey. And it's for the procreation and education of children. It's a permanent relationship that it's not to be, that's why it says, for as long as you both shall live. It doesn't say here for 30 years, or 20 years, or 10 months. It doesn't say that, right? So when we're talking about the goods of marriage, I'm getting the chills right now. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. The goods of marriage, a permanent, lifelong relationship for the spiritual good of each other and to bring about their physical expression of love for the procreation and education of children. Now, who is Catholic that don't know that? I mean, don't tell me. Okay, what do we have to do? Do we have to bang it over somebody's head and say, are you paying attention? Come on. Or are you entering marriage not with these goods in mind? And see what happens when they don't enter marriage with these goods in mind, Susan? It has to be investigated. That's what we call an investigation of novelty. Now, the common street word is an annulment. So we call it an investigation of novelty. Were these vows, the consent, in other words, done properly and they understood? Well, if they don't, they would have to plead their case before the church court and say, I didn't. So what an annulment does, so what basically every Catholic should know is it sees if the sacrament was valid. Because if this is not done the right way, it's invalid, right? You could almost say, Father, I think my marriage is invalid. I did not come properly disposed to receive the sacrament. Not at all. I'm petitioning that you investigate the validity of the sacrament. That's a powerful statement. I'm requesting that the church investigates the validity of the sacrament. I think it's invalid. And I'm seeking an annulment. An annulment says that the Catholic is not bound to the vows in which they uttered before God, the priest or deacon, and the spouse, the other spouse. I say all this because you may know this, but you may not, and I use this word often, Susan knows that, I use the word articulate. Mm-hmm. You might not be able to articulate this back at a barbecue. Having a hamburger and a cold beer, I don't know if you're able to, but I don't know, maybe you are. But these are these questions that come up at those spots. Mm-hmm. Not everyone comes into a parish office, like a pastor's office, and said, well, can I talk to you about the validity of the sacrament of marriage? I need the church to investigate whether or not this sacrament was valid. Now, don't get me wrong, some do. Some exactly know what I'm talking about. But it's good for mom and dad and grandmom and grandpa to help their children or grandchildren say, listen, talk to Nanny, what's going on? Nanny, you might not understand. Don't think I don't understand. I've been living around this world longer than you. Just tell me. And then they tell you. And then you'll be able to help them and say, listen, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. God made us humans. There's always a situation, even something that is serious like vows of marriage or vows of a priest, that can be looked at and see if that sacrament was really valid at the time the person made the vows. We need to talk about it. we need to talk about it. Now, priesthood is a little bit different because priesthood is for this life and the next. Because a priest is a priest here and in eternity. But married people are only here. Now, for some of you, that might be a good thing. For some people, it might be a bad thing. But, I know that in all seriousness, many people want to spend eternity with their spouse, which is a beautiful thing. And believe it or not, you will in a different way. But marriage is for the earth. Marriage is for the world. Marriage is for here. It's not something that is for eternity. What sacraments, here's a theological question. What sacraments are throughout eternity? Well, they're called the character sacraments that can only be received one time. Baptism, confirmation, holy orders. They're called character sacraments that last throughout eternity. The other ones are not. They're for us here, toward heaven. So marriage, until death do us part. And that's where marriage ends. Once one spouse dies, the sacrament ceases. It's over. That's why a person is free to marry once a person dies, because the sacrament no longer exists. It is over. I told you, I would like to tell you about, even in the priestly life, how beautiful it is that, how God uses the flesh to bring about the graces of the sacrament. Well, you will see the couple coming together in a beautiful, intimate, conjugal way to have human life, to regenerate humanity, to be co-creators with God. How beautiful it is for the priest. That kind of intimacy is not physical, but it is sacramental. So, if you could understand it in a mystical, sacramental way, that happens for the priest at baptism, when that person is born again, but it can only happen through a sacrament, that the priest does that. A living person is on the altar because a priest allowed that to happen through his words. When the priest celebrates the sacrament, it's life-giving. So it might not be the same, like when you think of a couple coming together in an intimate way, expressing their physical love in a conjugal way that creates human life. Okay, that's true. That's a very special, sacred moment. But even the celibate priest enters into a mystical encounter with the living God to produce something that is life-giving as well. Unless you're born of water and the Holy Spirit, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. They have to be born again. Well, a priest does that. It's life-giving. The priest allows Christ, body and blood, to be on the altar. That's life-giving. When someone is dead in sin, the priest says the words of life over them in absolution. So do you see how even the priest enters into a mystical, sacramental union with Christ, because the priest is also wedded to Christ in a mystical, sacramental way There's a bond there. There's an intimate relationship sacramentally, because the priest stands in the person of Christ as head and shepherd. Well, that's enough for today. That's heavy stuff, we say, you know. And I just want to tell you about that because it's important for us to know that every marriage counts, even if it's an invalid one. I need to know about it so I could prepare you to be free to marry sacramentally, or free to enter into a sacred holy bond, right? All right, well, don't forget, tomorrow Deacon Don will speak to you, but tomorrow also is the birthday of Mary. Do something nice for her. Have a nice day, everybody.